Meddy Ali, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ryan. It's good to see you.
Let's kick things off with something spicy. You recently just tripled the number of customer locations that you serve. What is your secret sauce?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think I'm really good at making connections with people and just talking to them, but not just having a conversation. It's more of talking to them of what they care about, right? And that's one thing that I see a lot of founders, especially builders, like they build great things, but they really lack a skill of talking to people and making really good connections. Like having really good connections in anything that you do is, and that comes through building relationships with people and knowing how to talk to people, right? Um, Even before building a product, I had a customer. When I started our company, when I first incorporated, I had a customer. I had them pay me for the first month upfront without having a product. We did not have a product. We had nothing to give to them. And the way that we were able to do that is just literally being really good at talking to them and convincing them that, hey, this is the solution that we have that could solve your problem, right?
Fantastic. I did. I've done quite a few of these interviews.
Yeah.
Some with more technical founders, some with non-technical founders. I did one with Nick McHenry from One Shop recently, and we were talking about a time when on the mastermind calls in the startup source community, he said, "Guys, I'm going to miss the next 3 or 4 because I'm getting in my car and I'm driving across the country and I'm going to go and visit all my customers." Everyone else on the call
Yeah.
was like, what, you're gonna leave your house and go and see people face to face? Are you a madman or something? And I thought that was great because in the SaaS world we just don't get out of the building enough and go and actually talk to customers, whether it's picking up the phone or going and seeing them face to face. What's interesting though, or the pattern seems to be that the non-technical SaaS founders that I've interviewed, and you're not a coder, right? You're more of a
I'm not a
product
coder.
guy.
I mean, I can understand a little bit of code, what's being written in the logic, but I'm not a coder by any means, no.
I think what happens is that non-technical founders have this like sell first attitude, and I think that's a blessing in disguise because it kind of forces you to. I need to get out and talk to people. I need to get customers. I need to get revenue in the door. I think sometimes the ability to code kind of ends up leading you down this path where you just sit around building and building and building and building and building, and you never
Yeah.
actually get out there and sell, which is important.
I get involved quite a bit with our local accelerator. It's a non-dilutive accelerator. And I see so many founders just build stuff, even if they're sales folks, right? They just build because they think they're doing uh, beneficial work. And then 9 out of 10 will either pivot very hard or kind of destroy what they've built because they really didn't go out and talk to people. They didn't build connections. They didn't know if people wanted this product, which just hits on to your point that you were just saying.
Why don't we backtrack a little bit? Can you tell us what is HelloWash and who is it for?
Yeah, so HelloWash is an AI phone answering service for the car wash industry. We basically create AI agents that answer the phone and answer customer inquiries and complete multiple tasks for the industry. We actually started out as Rest-A-Call, which is what we're incorporated as. We're incorporated as Rest-A-Call Inc., now DBA HelloWash. We started out creating AI bots for the restaurant industry, and here we are serving the car wash industry.
I want to ask you about that pivot as well because I think that's super interesting. So I
Yeah,
might get into that a little bit later on, but like especially the decision making framework that you went through, like leading up to the decision to pivot, because going from restaurants to
yeah.
car washes is is a pretty major step. But we'll get into that in just a little bit later. But um, so for Hello Wash specifically, going after car washes, how did you get your first customers?
So, our first customers, it was a little bit interesting because we got our first car wash customer, actually our first three, and we were still trying to sell to restaurants. We're like, they're just, the car washes are just like, people who needed us or saw our stuff somewhere and we talked to them. But the first three actually were people that I stalked on Facebook. So I was doing research on all of my competitors and I would visit their Facebook page and see their ads, and I'm like, should I spend money on ads on Facebook? um, because all my competitors who have $1 million were doing it. And what I was seeing is a lot of people were commenting like, "Can you do this for this industry? Can you do this for me?" Can And I would just respond to the people and be like, "Hey, I DM'd you," and then I would DM them and say, "Hey, we do the same thing for your industry." Right? Like at this time, I was just trying to grab like car washes or lawn mowing or whatever it is that people were doing. I was just trying to grab a customer anywhere. Uh, and I was doing it because I was trying to raise money, and I wanted to show revenue. Even during, so I was in this program called Beta in Minnesota, which is an accelerator, and even in my final pitch, when I had two car wash customers, we said we're a restaurant AI bot builder, but we have two car wash customers, which shows the versatility of this product. We were still trying to raise money for the restaurant side, but as far as like first few customers is absolutely stalking our competitors on LinkedIn. And then in future it's cold calling, a lot of warm introductions, and we can get into that later as well.
Let's talk about this pivot a little bit more. So you originally, so you have a background in the restaurant space, right?
Yes, my parents have, well, my dad more specifically has owned a restaurant, like a small mom and pop, for about 15 years. I used to work for him just on the weekends. And then now I own a pizza shop with my brother. We have two locations called Doge Pizza. So we've been in the industry for 20 years.
So what was the initial kind of light bulb moment that made you decide, hey, this industry needs an AI solution? And then how did you pivot from that into car washes? Because you don't own a car wash, you don't have a family history of car washes, do you?
No, no family history of car washes, which is interesting. But I mean, all small businesses kind of operate similarly. A lot of small business owners have a similar mindset. But I would work for my dad every weekend at his restaurant. And when he had a little bit of health trouble, he's doing fine now, thankfully. But when he had a little bit of health trouble, this was like around 2017. I was working full time, 9 to 5, and then from 5, I would go take over from the guy, because usually my dad would work and take over from the guy from like 5:30 to 10 close. And so I would do that for my dad for about like 3 week period until he got a little bit better. And so in that period, and even before, like it's just a one man solo job. And so I would be cooking in the grill, um, taking customers in front of me, taking their orders, as well as answering the phone. So I was doing three jobs at once. And this was like grill plus fryer plus prep area, just one person. And the phone was just, as soon as it rang, you just hated every moment of it, because it's like, dude, I'm trying to make three sandwiches and now I have to stop, answer the phone, take the order because it's money, and then after I finish, go wash my hand, and then come back and finish the three sandwiches in my hand, but also drop the order that I just took on the phone. So it was kind of like a crappy situation to be in.
Hmm.
And so I was like, there's got to be a better solution for the phone. There has to be like either an offshore call center that I can hire, or an AI solution that can take the order of the customer. Offshore was very expensive. Like I did the research, extremely expensive. Just I might as well hire a second person with me. AI, I really looked into AI, and I saw that there was a couple of companies that actually did it, but they just didn't want to work with the small guy. They're like, hey, you're small fry. We don't like the stuff that we're, which makes sense from a business perspective. Like the stuff that they're building, like it's better for them to have a scalable customer. Anyways, I went out and I was like, screw you guys, for not working with me and the small guy. I'm gonna build something for the small guy, but I wanted to validate the idea first, which goes back to our topic, is a lot of people just build. If I was a builder, I would have just built. I wouldn't have validated the idea. Now, how I validated the idea is I went out and I got a customer, the first customer in California, which was a very busy pizza shop, before I even had a product. And at that time, my product was just hiring people overseas. And so I learned so much about hiring people overseas. Like I hired hundreds of people in that 2 year or that 1 year period. I first went to the Philippines and I hired 6 people there. I then went to somewhere in Africa. I can't remember, Zambia. and I almost hired 6 people there. And I was paying like $650 per person. I was losing money at that point on one customer, but I wanted to make sure I had the process right. And so this guy started paying me, and I put in some of my savings, and I had 6 people working in the Philippines, and they were taking calls for this guy. I taught him how to take calls, and then I was like, shit, I'm losing too much money. I need to get a bigger customer. So I went out and started selling again. At this point, again, I have 6 people working in the Philippines. They're doing okay. And I talked to a company, a pizza shop in New Mexico, and they had 15 locations. Um, and basically, I made it seem, now I didn't lie, but I didn't tell them that I did not have a big call center. I just said I have a call center. And I had one person also working for me in Egypt at that time. I said I have 2 offices, one in Egypt and one in the Philippines. Now it's all true. Is just, they can assume whatever they want to assume, right? And at that point, they're like, okay, great, we're looking for a solution. It took me 2 months just to close this one customer. But in those 2 months, I was also doing a lot of other cold calls and a lot of other sales activities. I just wasn't just this person. And eventually, I was able to close them. I told them under one caveat is they have to pay me upfront for a whole month, and that was $5,000. And I told them that because I would charge them per call, we didn't know how many calls they would get in the first month. I just charged them $650 each location, and that money would go to their account. At the end of the month, we would discount it from how many calls they got, and then charge them the rest. Anyways, so they paid me $5,000 upfront. I used that money, and I told them it would be a 4 week onboarding period because I still have to train the people. At this point, I had no people, to be honest, right? And but the 4 weeks gave me some time, so I went on LinkedIn. I hired 20 people. I trained them how to take calls. I made shifts. I found I didn't even have a calling software. I found the calling software. I did all of these things in about a 2 week period, and then in the other 2 weeks, I trained my people, and then we went live with this customer. I was still working a full time job, and man, I was also taking calls on behalf of the customer in the call center. And so we had 20 people working, taking calls for this, 15 restaurants. Um, at that point, I was like, ideas validated, like meaning people want to automate. I could have assumed that because there was customers or competitors already in the space, but I wanted to do the shit work myself. And then I was like, okay, now I'm gonna build the AI version product. I built version one myself using like demos and just code that I could find online that was already written, and it worked. And then we shut down the call center. We told the customer, I'm sorry, like we're building this AI product and we need to focus there. This was around September of last year, which was a year ago. And then what we did was we basically let everybody go in the call center just because we were losing money, to be honest. We weren't making any money because we've never opened a call center before. This was our first time. But it was the right move to make because then we started building the AI product. I got my best friend to join me as a co-founder. He's a Bill Gates scholar, is extremely smart, master's in computer science, very smart guy. And I got him to start building the product for me. And then we wanted to really sell to restaurants. And then our journey came where we joined our local accelerator. It's non-dilutive, but they also don't give you money. And then over time, we just kind of figured out like we weren't getting any restaurant customers, and even if we did, it was just so hard to build for them. And I kind of understood the perspective of the companies that said they didn't want to work with us in the beginning, right? Because like we don't have money, we're bootstrapped. We tried to raise funding, it was just hard. And then our first customer was a car wash by stocking competitors' Facebook ads. Second customer was a car wash, and then third customer was also a car wash. And I'm like, we're still doing restaurants. This is our gonna keep going on restaurants. And then came April of this year, and we're like, why the hell are we still going after restaurants? Like we have 3 car wash. Let me do some research. I did the research in the car wash space, and I found that they need something like not all of them do, but they need something. And we started just going hardcore on car washes. Completely pivoted from Restocall to HelloWash, which was my co-founder is like, you're so we have a good relationship. He's like, this is the stupidest decision you're gonna make. We have this huge market of restaurants plus everybody else that we can go after. why are we going after such a small market? No investor will ever give you money. I was like, I don't care about the money. Like, we can bootstrap it. And we just kept going, and now we are growing quite fast in the space.
So how many locations do you serve right now?
Live locations, I think we're at 34,
Hmm.
which is really good in a couple of month period. Like, we've been since middle of April. I want to say like our first real month was May,
Yep.
June, July, August, September. So about 5 months in, 34 locations. Out of those, we're doing a pilot for a big customer that has over 150 locations. So if that pilot is successful, we're going to do the corporate side as well. We would get all 150, which is a huge deal for us.
That's massive. Going from where you are right now, that would basically quadruple your business, triple your business.
It would do a lot. Yeah, it would do
Yeah,
a lot.
fantastic. Well, fingers crossed that goes ahead for you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
When you made the decision to not serve restaurants anymore, was it just because going after restaurants felt like pushing a boulder uphill, whereas selling to car washes was easier? Was it a money thing? Was it
Yeah,
the problem was just more painful for car washes? Like, what was the big reason for the pivot?
yeah. As you know, selling is never easy. No matter what you're doing, right? It wasn't that restaurants was harder than car washes. They're both hard to sell to. The problem with restaurants was the sales cycle was a little bit longer, even for a one location restaurant. The and their needs were a little bit more as well. Like, they wanted to do so many things, and restaurants tend to switch POS systems quite often,
Mm.
depending on the restaurant. The bigger ones don't really do it, but the smaller ones will like try something new every couple of years, and that would also make it hard to switch and build um, the code for this change.
Mm.
And so, like, the technical part of it was harder, a little bit harder. The sales cycle was a bit longer, even for the one location. And then just to um, penetrate the barrier of making a decision was also a little bit harder, because the value to them was, I already have a person up front. Why can't I just have them take the calls, right? And so showing that value prop was a little bit harder. Now with car washes, it's a little bit easier to show value proposition, because a lot of them would be are owned by mom and pop folks, and they either don't answer the phone or they forward it to the cell phone. And I heard, hey, I'm sitting at the dinner table at 8 p.m. and I get a phone call, someone asking me if I'm open, right? And I don't want to lose that customer, so I need a better solution. And so we were able to just to fill a little gap there.
What's you shared a statistic the other day? I'm trying to remember what it was, but it's something like you can answer 50% of calls or 70% of customer
Yeah,
inquiries. What's that statistic?
yeah, 73.9%, just based on the thousands of calls that we took over the past couple of weeks. We can answer 73.9. I'm sure if we did it from the beginning, we could probably have a higher number. 73.9 of calls that come into a car wash, our AI can handle, so the car wash never has to see them.
Fantastic. That's a game changer, man. That's huge.
It's it's
Fantastic.
it's huge, yeah. And it's through not just automating the phone call, right? Because, like, there's a billion services right now that create these customer support agents and sales agents, right? It's it's understanding the process of your customer and really building around it, right? So we're not just an AI wrapper, right? We've built a whole process with code that works for the car wash industry, and then we use AI in the middle to help facilitate that process. It's not like we're using AI purely to solve that problem. It's the infrastructure that we've built from a code perspective, that helps the customer rather than just the AI.
Absolutely. And just for anyone watching this or listening to this that is considering pivoting into a space where they don't have a whole lot of direct experience, because I think some people
Yep.
are reluctant to do that. Exactly, like started off in the restaurant world, noticed a pain point in the restaurant world, built a solution for the restaurant world, but then found that it just made so much more sense for a completely different audience that you'd never intended. However,
Yep.
that's potentially there's a much stronger business case for that. When you're now moving into a world that you don't have. I'm not going to say you don't have a lot of experience in, because you said, like, a lot of small businesses operate the same way in the way that they approach phone calls, but you don't have a lot of direct experience or you didn't have a lot of direct experience in the car wash space until you started HelloWash and pivoted into it. Um,
Yep.
how do you, as a founder, get that experience in a new space that you didn't have
Yep.
direct experience in before? Hey, it's Ryan here. I'm glad you're enjoying the video. Listen, if you want to meet me or some of the people that I interview, you should really join the Startup Source SaaS founder community. It's a private Slack group for SaaS founders based outside of Silicon Valley who are past the idea stage and want to focus on growth. About 30% of our members are doing over $1 million a year in revenue, so it's a pretty high caliber group. You'll get access to regular mastermind calls and workshops, and every week we share exclusive marketing tactics and resources that you can use to grow your business faster. So, if you want to give yourself an unfair advantage and learn from other SaaS founders who are 1 or 2 steps ahead of you, head over to startupsource.com and sign up. I think there's a link in the description down below as well. Anyway, I'll see you in there.
That's a good question. Well, number one, if you don't have customers, is research, right? You just got to do your research. And by what I mean by research is not just Googling. You actually try to immerse yourself in the problem. So before I Googled, I actually called car washes and kind of figured out like that experience and call, and like when people answered, I would ask them quite like if a customer service rep answered my phone, I would be like, "Hey, tell me a little bit more." Like, "Oh, cool! Like you're in a call center. Tell me a little bit more about that. How many people work there?" So, like doing like that research kind of helped me understand. Like, okay, this car wash has 10 call center reps. They answer the phone. This is the average wage in that state. Here's how much they're spending. Here's what my product costs. Here's what my product can do for them. So that research, first of all, when you get a customer, it's talking to that customer, right? And that's where uh, having the skill of talking to people and building really good relationships matter. Is because if you're just selling a software product, let's say that's self-serve, which uh, are great products to sell, amazing products. Like I would rather sell uh, in the long run a self-serve product than not a self-serve product. But when you're starting out, you have to be able to talk to your customers to understand why they're using their product, your product, and why. Um, and then if you have that relationship with them and you can talk to them really well and have them trust you, they can then explain to you things that uh, you didn't know before. To give you an example, my first customer basically said, "Hey, um, I'm going to give you a secret. Join this Facebook group and I'll vouch for you of 23,000 car washers." Right? And I'm like, "Oh, this is great. Now I have access to 23,000 people who own car washes," right? Because I talked to my customer and we would spend literally an hour on the phone just talking about the problems that car washes face. And so having that trust with your customer. And then when you get to the bigger, like the bigger fish, the guys that own 100 locations, just sitting down also with those customers. Like yesterday, I had a call with one of our biggest customers, and in the call, we just spent 15 minutes, and I was like, "Hey, can you show me your process for XYZ?" And when she was showing me the process, I got ideas of like, we can build this into our platform. Even though it's not call related, we can build this and we can build this and we can do this. And we can charge them the same amount and just like consolidate all of these things into what we do.
That's powerful, man. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Do you have any tips on? And we'll get into cold calling in just a second, but do you have
Mm,
any tips on getting people to drop their guard a little bit and share some of that information with you? I think a lot of people,
yeah.
they struggle to, they say, "Can you show me, what do you actually do on a day-to-day basis?" I do this and then I do this, but they're not giving you meaningful, insightful kind of answers. Like, do you have any
Answers, yeah.
tips on getting them to open up and share that information with you?
Are they customers or not customers?
Both.
For non-customers, it's a little bit harder, just because you don't have, first of all, a working relationship, but also like if people don't have time to waste on you, for the most part, right? Um, but if even if they're not customers, you can take the approach of I want to build this for like we're so new as a company, we're such a startup that our code is so flexible, even if it may not be. our code is so flexible that we want to build this for your specific problem. So if people are seeing like, hey, you're building for, I don't care other customers have may not have this problem, but if you do, I want to be able to understand this problem and build it for you. Taking that approach, I've actually taken that approach myself with leads and said, hey, listen, we're having a demo conversation, but I really want to understand what your walk me through this process so I can build it for you, right? So making it about them. But when they're a customer, it's a little bit easier if you're showing value, right? So on the call yesterday with my customer, we're talking about, okay, here's how much value we're providing for you. I make for the bigger customers, I make what's called a biweekly meeting where we go over the value that we're providing, and we're a little bit unique because we do phone calls. But what I do is I do a presentation and I say, hey, here's how many calls we took from for you. Here's the breakdown of what the categories of those calls are. Here's what that means in time savings. Here's And then during that call is where I ask these questions. Can you show me the process of X? Can you show me this? Last time you mentioned the software. Can you actually go in there and show me? Like literally yesterday, I was like, can you share your screen if you're okay with it, and show me how you do claims? And she opened up her screen and she showed me how she does claims. She's like, this is what my team spends time on. And so, and then what I do is I relate my time, I tie my product back to it. I was like, okay, so the fact that we're taking phone calls for you means your team doesn't have to answer them and spend more time on the stuff that you care more about. She's like, yeah, absolutely, we love it. And she's like, we're very customer focused, and I want my team to answer the phone, but sometimes when we have so many claims, I just turn off our phones and let you guys take it over for 4 hours so my team can focus on the more important stuff. um, and so like, but that conversation would have never happened if I never asked her to show me her process and what they do. Like, I never knew her team worked on claims until yesterday, right? But now I know.
Just to backtrack a little bit, so you with your bigger customers, you have like a standing sort of every 2 weeks we get on a call and we talk through. How do you? Because I can understand the value for you because you that's an opportunity to remind them of the value that they're receiving every 2 weeks, which is really powerful. I don't think enough companies do that. That sounds awesome. I really like that approach. And you've got contact, you've got an ability to ask them for, you've got a platform and a way of asking them for feedback. But how do you? how do you get them to agree to that? Because they've got to, commit the time and everything else to it. Yeah, they get busy. How, like, what's in it for them? Why do they get on a call with you every 2 weeks?
In my mind, like, it makes sense because you're buying my product to have some sort of ROI, and I want to make sure that you're seeing that ROI. But how I approach it with them is like, hey, every 2 weeks, all I need is 15 minutes from your time because I really want to go over, is our product working for you? And if it's not, what can we do to fix that, right? And I'm blunt, like, I just say it bluntly, right? Like, a lot of people try to walk on eggshells, especially with their customers. Like, I tell them, you're paying me X amount for this every month. I want to make sure it's valuable to you, and I want to make sure I keep you as a customer as well. And so if we have this, bi-weekly meeting that's 15 minutes, and I always set it up after the onboarding call. So we do an onboarding call and I set it up and I say, hey, like, should we set this up? When are you usually free? And let's just have it there on the calendar every 2 weeks in perpetuity, right? I don't know if that's the right use of that word in that context,
Perfect.
but so I set it up on the onboarding call, and I make that case, like, I'm selling the biweekly call by telling them, here's what's in it for you, here's what's in it for me, and if we don't do it, it's like you're not seeing the value that you get for your money, right? That's how I do it with my customers, I guess.
Fantastic. I think that's really powerful, man. I've never heard people take a consistent approach like that. I know people will do, oh, let's just get on a call. Or I've got a few
Yep.
customers that I've got a good relationship with, and I talk to them all the time, but not systematically. We go from onboarding. Let's get 15 minutes in the calendar every 2 weeks from now on, until the end of time.
Yes.
That's powerful, man. I like that a lot.
And just to point something out, I don't just do it with my big customers because they're paying me the most. um, I do it. I also do it with the small guys via email.
Mm,
Not because they're not important, but the the bigger guys solve bigger problems.
mm.
And so understanding those bigger problems is a little bit different than a one man shop.
Mm.
But that one man shop is still extremely important, right? So I just wanted to make that point.
Absolutely, and I imagine the bigger guys have like because the problems that they deal with are bigger, more complicated. Like you kind of need a conversation to talk it through.
Yeah,
Whereas I think
it's a yeah,
if you're a one man band, it's a bit more streamlined. You can just get all the information you need in an email format, and if they've got any questions, they can email you back as
a
well. So
hundred
it's
percent.
yeah,
That's exactly what. Yep, that's exactly what it is.
yeah, that makes perfect sense. Well, listen, why don't we dive in? I want to switch tack a little bit and go into cold calling because I know you said that
Yeah,
that's a bit of a superpower of yours, and I think it's something that like I used to be afraid of cold calls. I've done plenty of them. I used to dread it. I used to hate it. You know how they say that thing where you got to eat that frog, get up in the morning, and just like do the thing that you
yeah,
hate doing first. So I do try and smash through all my cold calls first thing in the morning, but I never felt comfortable doing it, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because like I like talking to people. I'm generally pretty good at talking to people.
yes,
I'm doing a podcast. However, for some reason, I used to just freeze up whenever the idea of doing a cold call came up. And I don't ever feel like I got good at it.
yeah,
However, I know that, so many people will hide behind email or
yeah.
SEO or all these channels that don't
LinkedIn. Yeah,
LinkedIn don't require you to actually talk to people because then you're immune from rejection. However, you're missing out on a massive opportunity because people still do business with people, and
yeah,
if you can talk to someone, forge a good relationship with them, you are so much more likely to sell to that person in the future than
yeah.
just cranking out more blog posts. So,
100%.
Mehdi, I've got a few tactical questions about
Sure.
how to structure a cold call, how to approach it, all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. But do you have just like a high level overview of what you're trying to achieve with a cold call to begin with? Like, are you trying to
yeah.
sell them your solution on your call? Are you trying to get half an hour of their time? Like, what are you trying to achieve on this cold call, and how do you approach it just from a really high level?
First of all, I'm also still very scared of cold calling. Like I dread it when I want to start, but once you knock the first one or two out of your system, then it starts to get a little bit better. Especially if you get like a very good one in the first or two, then you're like you feel a lot more confident. So I still get nervous just when I want to cold call. Um, Now, in terms of your question, right, the goal of a cold call, at least in my perspective, if you're selling to B2B product, is always to get a demo because you're catching someone off guard. They weren't expecting to talk to you for more than a couple minutes or be on the phone for more than a couple minutes. And so if you can get them on a demo, it gives you a lot more time to one prepare as well as share more information rather than trying to fit everything in one small cold call, and they even may be doing something on the side and not even paying attention to you, right? And so my goal is always getting a demo for me. I don't know what others may be different, but for me it's always getting a demo.
And how long should a cold call take?
In my opinion, it most cold calls should take about 2 minutes, but it depends, right? If the lead is asking a lot of questions, then it could take as long as I've been on cold calls that took 30 minutes, right? Because the person is asking questions, they're actually very intrigued. But if they're not asking questions and you just feel like, hey, like if you feel like you're gonna be talking and them just then it gets to a point where for the married people who know, just a spouse that's just calling you and just talking for 30 minutes and you're not getting a word in, right? Either men or women, right? Doesn't matter. uh, but that's how it tends to feel if they're not actually intrigued and asking questions. So 2 minutes is like my benchmark for a
Hmm.
cold call.
Let's say you get someone who is really interested. Can the cold call flip into the demo, or are you still pretty specific about no, we need more time to go through the demo. Let's, if you got, I see you've got a bunch of questions. Let's lock in a time and we'll do the demo a bit later on. Does one turn into the other, or are you very specific about keeping them separate?
It depends on what you're selling in your sales cycle. For me, I always like to get a demo because I like to see them face to face and turn on my camera. Even if they don't turn on their camera, I like them to see my face. Um, but if you have an opportunity, I mean, it's just so hard. Like in my industry, I can't imagine just Actually, I did. I did sell a customer before on a in the car wash, like because but they were asking a lot of questions, and we sold, and I sent them the agreement. But just for the bigger guys, it's always got to be the demo, man, because you have to really present your case on screen, show them things that they haven't seen before, give them examples. Like for me, for example, on the demo, I call our product and then I call their location and I show them the difference. Be like, hey, your location didn't answer, or this person just literally rushed me off the phone and didn't say thank you. Our product said thank you, have a blessed day, right? So it's like showing them the difference between, even though this is AI, the experience is so much better than talking to your person, right? And
Mm,
so that's why I like to give them the feel and touch on a demo.
that makes sense. Are you calling the mobile of the decision maker directly, or are you calling like the general switchboard number that goes through and then you talk your way past the assistant?
If I can find the mobile, I'll call directly. um, that's Now everybody just gets used to, like, with work from home, like their phone is the business phone nowadays, right? So calling their mobile directly, and then finding the people is a little bit tricky because it depends on what you're selling. For me, I have a very limited amount of customers, and so and when I say limited, I mean like there are 60,000 car washes in America. However, the top 6,000 are like 100 companies, right? And those are the ones that I really want to go after. Now, if I want to go after the other 55,000, I could, but that requires a lot of marketing spend, a lot of like getting in front of them. Whereas the top 100, I can easily find online. Um, and so for me, I've been using LinkedIn quite a bit. LinkedIn Navigator is great, depending on your ICP again. But LinkedIn Navigator plus a tool like Huiza or Apollo or one of those that finds numbers and emails, and has a Chrome extension. That's how I would do it.
Fantastic. Well, let's get into the specifics of the cold call. Okay, so it's gonna be 2 minutes. The goal is to get them onto a demo.
Yeah,
So how do you open the cold call? And let's say we're talking to them directly, and we're not having to get past a gatekeeper.
yeah. So here's some advice that is usually given on cold calls. Ryan, you have 15 seconds to capture this person's attention. Talk as much as you can about the value that you bring to them in those 15 seconds. A lot of people will say that, right?
Oh yeah.
That is absolutely awful, 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 awful advice. Like, I can't imagine anybody in the world just sitting there listening just for 15 seconds. Like, I would hang up by second five, right? Five seconds in, like, we're done. Um, and so a lot of cold calling advice that I see nowadays is like, you got to take advantage of the opportunity. You got to do this. Only one person in 50 will answer. So make sure that they never hang up. How the hell are, like, you're just praying to God that they're not rude and they don't hang up on you. That's all you're doing, right? And most people are not rude and they will not hang up and they'll listen for 15 seconds. But those 15 seconds, you've already lost their interest, right? And then they try to find value for that person by doing research and finding their football team and finding this and finding that. What do they love? You know, if they have kids, talk about your kids. And it's like all these things that are irrelevant to what you're trying to do, to try to build rapport. Sure, rapport is important, but too much rapport could kill your cold call. And so, what I like to do from my perspective, and what has worked for me, and what I've seen work with others, is get that person to just respond to you immediately, like within the first 3 seconds. If you can do that, they've had a chance to get something in, you've had a chance to get something in, and then ask for permission to continue the conversation. A lot of people will also say, and again, I don't like this advice, it may work for others, don't ask for permission, just go right into it. It kind of sucks when you don't ask for permission. Like if someone's calling me and they say, "Hey, like, can I get 30 seconds of your time or a minute of your time?" I'm more likely to say yes than just them going into a spiel. And so I always like to ask for their name first. Meaning, if I know their name, I say, "Hey, Ryan, but I ask it in a question. Hey, Ryan. And then my goal is to get you to say, yeah, this is Ryan.
Yeah.
Yep. And if you don't know their name, which you shouldn't be making a cold call if you don't know their name, but if you don't know their name, be like, hey, I'm trying to reach X, Y, and Z at X, Y, and Z, right? Or ABC at X, Y, and Z. I'm trying to reach the person who runs operation at Startup SaaS.
Mm.
Would that be yourself, right? And then they could say yes.
Yep. Okay.
So getting that answer in the first 3 seconds is extremely crucial to them dropping their guard on the cold call.
And then what do you say next? Like, Meddy, yeah. And then what? What do you say? What do you say after that?
Say it depends on who's making the cold call. For founder, I'm completely focused on founder-led sales cold calling. So for founder-led sales cold calling, you say, "This is who I am, and this is who I'm from," and then you ask for permission, right? So, hey Ryan, yeah, hey, this is Meddy. I'm the founder of HelloWash. Is it okay if I tell you about what we do? Do you have a minute? Right? And so getting, and now a lot of people will also give you the advice to say, hey, this is Mehdi from HelloWash. We do AI phone automation for the car wash industry, right? Like putting in the extra. You can do that. I mean, I don't think it really helps per se because you're still going to get permission eventually. But if you say, hey, this is Mehdi, I'm the founder of HelloWash. Can I tell you what we do? Do you have a minute for me to tell you what we do? And most
Mm.
likely they'll say yes.
Okay.
Um, a lot of gurus nowadays will say that's horrible advice. But what they really don't know is like the other person on the phone doesn't have, like, you caught them off guard,
Mm.
right? It's like, sure, you're trying to put the value out there. If they will give you the space to tell them the value.
And I think, like, when I think back to a lot of the cold calls that I've received, my mind's focused on something else. Phone's ringing. Hey, who's this? What's going on? I'm completely not focusing on what they're doing. So they could deliver the value proposition. I'm still not going to take it in because I'm just not in the headspace for it. Does it matter if, okay, but your business name is HelloWash? Like, if you called up and said, hey, it's Mehdi from Resticle, and you're calling a car wash, can I tell you about what you do? And they'd be like, Resticle, what, huh? Like, do you need to deliver that value proposition, or that's kind of like elevator pitch? We help X businesses achieve Y outcome. Do you need to do that if your name doesn't sound like it's super relevant to them? Is that more important then?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think so. I
Mm.
think I think you just need like a 3 word sentence or a 4 word sentence of value
Mm-hmm.
proposition. If your name is, because with Hello Wash, we get a little bit of help because they're like, oh, Hello Wash, I own a car wash, so they kind of put two and two together.
Mm.
So kind of like they're like, oh, are you the owner? I've gotten a lot of times, are you the owner of a car wash? And
Right.
then we go into it, right?
Okay. Okay. But there's automatically an association that, oh, you're in my industry, you're in my space.
There's an association with the name. Yep,
Yeah. Okay.
100%. Now with the rest of the call, I would add a little bit of a value prop, like, "Hey, my name is Mehdi. I'm the founder of Restacall. We do AI phone automation for the car wash industry. Do you have
Mm.
a minute for me to tell you about it?" And then that's where I would add that value prop. Yeah.
What if they say no? Like, how do you handle that? Do you say, okay, cool, bye? Or do you call them back later? Or how do you handle a no?
If they say no, they don't have a minute, I ask them if there's a better time to call back. If they say no, just don't call me back, I say, okay, like this person doesn't want to talk to me. If they're the head of operations, the person, if they are the decision maker for what I need to do, I will do a couple things. I will try to go above them, right? Uh, which may be a bad move sometimes because then you're undermining their authority, but they don't want to talk to you anyways. Or I would follow up with an email to them with kind of value proposition. But the third thing is also maybe even go under them and try to show value to that person there. So if he's the VP of Ops and he has a regional head of Ops, um, showing the value proposition to the regional head of Ops and be like, and then having them bring it to their VP of Ops, then they're like, oh, I already talked to this person. Let me see what he has to say.
So you start with the direct decision maker that you would want to talk to, and if they don't want to talk to you, then you go up or you go down, or you follow up with an email.
Yep,
That's the approach?
that's the approach.
Okay, so we've said, hello, Meddy. Yep, it's Ryan from Startup Sourcer. It's Meddy from HelloWash. Have you got a minute? Yep, we've got their permission. What do you say next? Like, how do you go from getting their permission into let's schedule a demo?
That's a hard one. Um, the reason being is a minute is not really a minute, right? When they tell you you have a minute, like maybe you have like 15 to 30 seconds before they wander off again. But when they say I have a minute, they're really listening for those 15 seconds, in my opinion, I think. And so I go into exactly what we do, but like I really refine it. So I say, hey, this is Meddy from HelloWash. And then you have a minute? Yes, great. What we do is we answer the phone using AI for the industry. So I called one of your. Usually, I do my research before. I called one of your locations, and I was on hold for 5 minutes, and then it hung up on me for some reason. Like usually, it's a bad experience. Or if it is a good experience, it's like, hey, I was on the phone for. I called one of your locations, so I tell them what we do first. Like we
Mm,
create an AI solution that answers the phone for you.
hmm
I just called one of your locations and someone did answer. However, the question that I asked, our AI solution could have handled it. I'd love to show you how it works on a demo, something like that, right?
So you do your research first. You call the location just to see how it handles it. Then you do the
Yeah.
cold call and you adjust the meat and potatoes of the cold call based on how their system works.
Now, if I didn't do my research, I would just tell them what Hello Wash does, right?
Hmm
We do AI phone answering for the car wash industry. We tend to save 75% of calls from your team ever seeing them. So it's kind of like a small pitch.
Absolutely. And then what happens then? They say like that sounds interesting, or oh, okay, or do they ask you how much it costs? Like do they go straight into money straight away? Like how do you?
Sometimes they do, but usually they say, okay, that I ask a question after my spiel always.
Mm,
I'd love to set up a demo, and then I just ask for the demo right there
mm,
after my spiel.
okay.
Do you have a demo next week? Now, if they say yes, great, we set up a demo. If they ask a question, then I answer that question. And then after I answer that question, I say, do you have any other questions? They either say yes or no. If they say no, no, I don't have any other questions, I say, great. How about I show you exactly how it works in a demo? And
Mm,
then what I tell them too for the bigger guys, I say, I can build a demo for your one of your locations. It
mm,
takes me like 20 minutes to build a demo. I can build a demo for one of your locations and show you how it would work for you guys on our demo next week. And then usually then we schedule a demo.
and when you schedule the demo, like okay, I come at this mostly from like a cold email background. Cold calling I haven't done so much of, but the etiquette with scheduling a call or a demo with cold email is, hey, are you free, next Tuesday or Wednesday? They're right back saying, yeah, okay, maybe, or maybe I'm busy, but I could do Friday, whatever it is. And then you say, okay, well, can you do this time or this time? Or here's my Calendly link. Do you want to click a link in there and schedule it? Now, if you're on a phone call and you're not even on a Zoom call, you can't even see them, you can't share your screen or anything. What is the etiquette around scheduling the demo exactly on a cold call?
Just saying if they're like, hey, I can show you on a call next week. Really, it's about okay. When are you free for a call?
Mm,
Just kind of literally asking them the question: are you free anytime next week, any day? If they say no, sure, the week after.
mhm.
But you just literally ask like, when are you free
Okay.
to have a demo? It's a
Okay.
30-minute demo. But
Yep.
you set expectations. You say it's a 30-minute demo.
hmm
Unless you have a lot of questions, we can schedule a longer time.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. What are some of the common mistakes that you see people making when it comes to cold calling?
If you are making a spiel right away, like 15 seconds, not even allowing them to drop their guard, that's a big mistake. You are talking too much. That's a big mistake. Your pitch is too long. That's a big mistake. Your value prop just you think is the value prop that you care about, but they don't care about it. That's another mistake. I like to give people an assurance on calls when people don't give assurances, like, hey, just to make sure like you're not wasting their time, right? It's like, can we set up a demo? If you like what you hear, we can move on to the next step. If you absolutely hate it, we can part ways and we've both learned something new, right? Something like that. Throw that in there. Just creating assurances and just creating enough trust that you won't waste their time in the future.
Okay.
And when people don't do that on a cold call, it kind of it tends to hurt them.
Yeah. So you just like you're automatically kind of limiting their risk, right? It's only going to be a minute. If you don't like what I have to say, I'll leave you alone. Like you're not
Yeah.
asking an unlimited amount of time and focus from them. Yeah. Okay.
And then another big mistake is people ask too many questions on the cold call. It almost becomes like a survey.
How many is the right amount of questions to ask?
It's not how many. It depends on how the conversation is flowing. But if you're like asking question after question after question after question, like, hey, how many car washes do you have? Hey, who's the decision maker? Hey, who? How many calls do you get a day? Hey, how do you do? At that point, they're like, why the hell am I answering this guy's questions that just randomly called me?
And is that where people start going away from the original goal of the call in the first place, which was to line up a time for a demo?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, in the demo, you can ask all of those questions, and
Mm,
that's how I do demos always. It's like the first 50% of the demo, I'm asking questions, man. Like I tell
mm,
them, like it's gonna feel like an interview,
mm,
and it's because I'm trying to understand your process so that I can fit my product into your process
mhm.
rather than tell you everything that's unrelated to your process, right? And so I make it clear on the demo that I'm gonna ask a billion questions, but on the cold call, asking too many questions is not good.
And what's the best time to cold call?
I don't know. I mean, there isn't like a secret sauce to it. People will say based on research, based on whatever. But if you can, when you say the best time, it's like they're talking about when you can get someone on the phone, right?
Mm,
Um, it's not really when is the best time someone has a good mood, which they
mm.
also did research on that and said after lunch because they're full. But I think it was after or before. I can't remember. But honestly, like the best time is when you are in a good mood to do a cold call.
Mm,
When you're like ready to do a cold call, just do a cold call. Like there isn't. It's if you're founder led cold calls, you're not on a dial pad making 200
mm.
calls a day, right? That's when the best time for cold calling matters is when you're doing 200, 300 calls a day. But when you're just founder led, like I do a cold call whenever, obviously between business hours too, right?
But I wasn't sure if you kind of like block out, like on
Yeah.
every Tuesday morning, I'm going to do cold calls for 4 hours. I tried doing that once. I think I read that in a blog post. I tried doing that once. Hour number three, like I'm tired, I'm exhausted. I've forgotten which planet I'm on by that point because my mind's just a blur. Like I can
Yeah.
do it for maybe an hour and then I can't focus anymore. Do you find the same thing or am I just weak?
Yeah, no, you're not weak. In the world of cold calls and callers, you would die in the trenches, right? No, I agree with you. Just sitting down, man. Cold calling is mentally exhausting. It's just so it sucks, especially with rejection. You get one rejection, and you're like, "F this guy" and "F his company," and you're like in your mind, it just affects you.
Mm.
Um, People say grow thick skin. Yeah, you can grow thick skin and just move on to the next one, but you're still thinking about the guy that said, "No, you're worthless," and hangs up on you. All right?
I think too, as a founder, like founder led cold calls, you take that rejection so much more personally because it's your
Yeah.
business, it's your thing, and yeah, I get that. Do you have any tips or any hacks on dealing with rejection?
Just grow a pair, I guess. Like you're gonna get rejection no matter what, especially being a early founder, and just get over it. Like don't. I know it's easy to say don't let it affect you. I let it affect me sometimes, but it's just like it's whatever. Like just move on to the next one is my advice. Is just move on to the next one.
Mm.
There's plenty of customers that you can go after, and that one person that rejected you will not make or break your business.
And just as a quick summary, can we do like a bit of a kind of live 2 minute, 1 minute role play just to put all this in context? So if you were doing this specifically for HelloWash with a car wash customer, so let's say you're cold calling me, I'll pretend to be a customer just to go kind of go through it all and put it all together. Show what this looks like to someone.
How about this? I'll I found a guy's number that I haven't called before. Okay, so that was wrong guy, which is okay. It said director of development, which could mean a lot of different
Oh
things.
yeah, don't you love these vague corporate titles?
Yeah.
But that was good because I think that specific scenario is going to happen a fair bit as well. So just not. not getting
100%.
flustered, and how you kind of redirected that towards, yeah, just go through email, get the right person, and then follow up with the right person.
Yep. And so if we break down that cold call,
Mm,
you'll see that he said, hey, this is Joe right away. So I started at, hey, Joe, this is Meddy with HelloWash. How are you? And then he's like, who are you with? And I told him HelloWash is an AI phone answering service for the industry. I kind of established that we're a startup, which is people are really interested to hearing about new startups. That's what I found. And then he said, oh, I'm not the right guy. Most people would say, okay, thank you, and hang up. I said, oh, who would be the right person to reach out to? So that's step one. Um, he did the thing where he says, I'm not going to give you, like he's being a gatekeeper, basically.
mm,
I can't give you who the person is. I said, okay, that's okay. And he said, tell me your name and email, which is that he's never going to send it to anybody. So instead, I said, well, instead, I have your email. Can I send you something? And then you could forward it to someone. I think I said forward, or maybe I just said, can I send you who we are? Uh, and then I even established more rapport and said, we're connected on LinkedIn. I'll even send you a message there. And so it felt kind of just like a normal conversation. It wasn't me trying to sell him something and him just rejecting me. It was more of just he wasn't the right contact.
and you didn't try and keep him on the call longer
I didn't
than
try to keep him on the call.
necessary. And when you follow this one up, so are you going to email him and you're going to send him a message on LinkedIn, or are you just going to look for a different contact?
I'll email him. I'll send him because one of the biggest guys that one of the biggest leads that I have working right now is through an exact same situation where the guy said, I'm not the right guy. I'm the VP of finance. But if you send me something and I find it interesting, I'll forward it to someone else. And now I have this $1 million client. I have a call with them. I've had 3 calls with them and I'm still talking to them and they're very interested.
Fantastic. Well,
Right.
fingers crossed that one closes for you, man.
Yeah.
I think this was really insightful. I appreciate that, man, because it's doing cold calls. Like, you can go into the theory all you want, but until you actually see it out in the wild and how it's done,
It's
I think
very different.
I think there's a lot that people could learn from this.
Yeah.
Just finally, Maddie. So, two last questions.
Please.
First of all, are there any tools or books or resources that you would recommend for anyone looking to tighten up their cold calling game?
I mean, one really, it's not really cold call related, but Never Eat Alone is a
Mm.
really good book. Uh, you've heard of it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's classic.
That's one of like the books that sticks with me because it teaches you the power of making connections. There's a bunch of cold calling books out there. I wouldn't really read a full book on cold calling. I would just try it out myself and try different things. Um, One piece of advice, and I would much rather call lower level leads for an hour than read a book for an hour.
Mm.
But obviously, you got to know what to say, right? And so, doing some research, like understanding how to do a cold call first, is important. There are books that will give you great tricks, but there isn't like a formula for cold calls, right? Everybody has their own style. Let's see what else. Yeah, that's what I would kind of do. As far as books, I'm kind of blinking. So
That's fine. So you put together like a bit of an outline for what you're going to say, just so you got like something to remind you if you're totally new to this, and then you call some low level leads, because if you crash and burn, it's not the end of the world. You can call back the boss or the boss's boss later on. You're not
yep,
completely, wasting or burning those bridges at all. But it's easy to just get over that hump and get you used to picking up the phone and calling new people.
100%.
Mehdi, if anyone is interested in learning more about HelloWash or wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way to reach out?
Just my email, medi@restocall.com. If anybody wants to, I find myself doing a lot of cold call trainings recently. I did one this morning with a startup founder. So if anybody is interested in like, hey, how do I do a good cold call? Can I uh, can I set up a time with you, like 30 minutes, just to talk about it? Can I do um, some mock cold calls with you? Like, great, I don't mind it at all.